Hello AP Statistics. In this video, I'm just going to make a general comparison between sampling distributions based on the type of data you have so that hopefully as you're preparing for your test, you can kind of organize this in your head. Okay, so when you're met with a sampling distribution, and how can you tell that? Well, generally you'll be given a sample of some particular size, okay? So always keep that in mind. So once you determine that you're dealing with a sampling distribution, because you're told you're given a certain sample size, then you determine if you're dealing with categorical or quantitative data. How can I tell? Well, for categorical data, you're probably going to be given some kind of percentage, some information that indicates that your data, whatever it is, fits into one category. Why can't I spell that word? I don't understand what's wrong with me. One category or another. Okay, so it kind of takes on that idea of binomial, right? So it reminds us of that. So it either fits into one category or another. With quantitative, you're going to be looking for values for which it makes sense to take an average or otherwise manipulate mathematically. So in other words, here you don't just have two outcomes, it either fits into one category or another. For this one, you're going to have lots of different values that average together. Also for quantitative, you will have a standard deviation, okay? They have to give you a standard deviation because of the nature of the formula for sampling distributions for quantitative. All right, so in categorical, once you determine you have categorical, your conditions, some of them are very similar, all right? So when we're talking about conditions, both of these require that you have a simple random sample, all right? Both of them require that your sample size be less than 10%, and both of them require that your individuals are independent. You know what? Write that out, Miss Griggs. Your individuals as in people or items or whatever. So individuals are independent from one another. Okay, so those three conditions are the same. But the last condition, okay, or the other condition that you have to have for categorical, you have to have NP rules. Since you have categorical data that fits into one category or another, see, one category or another, you have to have at least 10 in each category. So that's why we use NP rules. For quantitative, you have a couple of options. If sampling from a normal distribution sample size doesn't matter, and you can say or write given normal. All right, so that is your last condition for quantitative. Or if sample is 30 or more, and by the way, when that is the case, it doesn't matter what you're sampling from. You can be sampling from a skewed distribution, a bimodal distribution, whatever. So if the sample is 30 or more, you say it's large enough by CLT to approximate normal. And by the way, you have to say that here too. If your NP rules are at least 10 for each of them, you say the sample is large enough to approximate normal. Groovy. Okay, so once you have all of that figured out, then what you have to do is you have to create a distribution in this form right here. So, okay, you have to do the same thing here. Okay, so how do we do that, Miss Griggs? Well, whatever P you were given in the problem, that goes right there. And your distribution for, or your standard deviation for your distribution is going to be whatever the P you were given here, times 1 minus P over the sample size. Don't forget that everything is in the square root. For quantitative, you're going to have the standard deviation you were given divided by the square root of n, and that is what will go right there. That is how you do this. Then when you find probabilities, when you write your statement, your inequality statement, it needs to look like that for categorical and that for quantitative. Okay, so I've just kind of outlined the differences here for you. Okay, so our conditions are the same except for when we get to approximating normal. And notice I make a statement for NP rules, it's large enough to approximate normal. If you're sampling from a normal distribution, all you have to do is write given normal. If your sample size is 30 or more, then you need to say it's large enough by CLT to approximate normal. And then of course you have your appropriate formula for your standard deviation depending on whether or not you have categorical or quantitative data. Hopefully this video has been helpful in just trying to organize your thoughts a little bit. I apologize for my sloppy handwriting. Look what I did. I forgot the T right here. How embarrassing.